Welcome. Tonight, you are tasked with the monumental challenge of building and governing a new medieval town from nothing. So, find your favorite spot to rest, settle in, and allow your shoulders to soften. Take a slow, deep breath, and as you exhale, let the day's worries simply drift away. It is time to relax. Where are you listening from this evening? And what time is it for you? Is it late at night, or perhaps an early morning, as you try to get a quiet head start on the day's glorious chaos? If you find these stories help you unwind, a gentle tap on the subscribe button ensures we can travel together again. Now, let your mind travel back. The year is 1100. You stand on a small hill overlooking your new responsibility. A handful of wooden huts, a half-finished well, and a simple timber wall. The people here look to you for everything. For safety, for justice, and for a future. The first decision of many now rests on your shoulders. The wind pushes against you, a constant, unseen hand at your back. You pull your wool cloak tighter, the rough fabric a familiar comfort against your neck. In your hand, a roll of parchment crackles with every gust. This is the charter, the document from your patron lord that gives you the right to be here, on this windswept hill overlooking a lazy bend in the river. It is a promise of a future, but for now, it is just a piece of paper. Below, scattered in the hollow where the hill shields them from the worst of the wind, a handful of families huddle around their campfires. Their weary faces, illuminated by the flickering orange light, are turned up towards you. A mix of hope and deep-seated exhaustion, plain to see. This fragile hope feels like a heavy weight on your shoulders. The air is clean and sharp, carrying the scent of damp soil from the riverbank and the distinct, clean smell of pine from the woods that crowd the opposite shore. Because of this clarity, every sound carries. You hear the low, mournful call of a cow, the sharp, rhythmic chop of an axe somewhere in the trees, and the quiet murmurs of the families below. These are the first sounds of your new home, a sparse and lonely melody. As you watch, a grizzled man detaches himself from one of the groups and begins the slow walk up the hill to meet you. He moves with the careful economy of someone who has spent a lifetime working the land, his shoulders stooped but strong. When he reaches you, he doesn't offer a grand greeting, just a simple nod. His face is a map of hard years, his eyes clear and direct. He is the one they look to, their informal leader. He explains the situation in a low, even voice, wasting no words. The season is turning faster than they had hoped, and the initial supplies they carried with them are nearly gone. You gnaw on a piece of hardtack from your own pouch, the gritty, tasteless biscuit a stark reminder of their dwindling rations. He tells you they have just enough able-bodied people to accomplish one major task before the first snows arrive. The choice, he makes clear, is yours to make. Following this stark pronouncement, you walk the site with him, feeling the truth of his words settle in your bones. Near the river, you press your boot into the ground. The earth gives way, soft and dark, clinging to the leather. It's rich land, perfect for farming. You can almost smell the future harvests in that cool, damp soil. This land could feed hundreds. Later, you move towards the small forest that edges your granted land. You run your hand over the rough, deeply grooved bark of a large oak tree. The woods are dense with timber, a ready source of everything from firewood to the beams and posts of permanent homes. The potential is immense, but the time to use it is short. The weight of the decision presses on you as you return to the overlook. The elder stands silently beside you, letting you think. He has presented the problem. The solution is your burden. You look down at the people again. A woman is trying to coax a small child to eat a thin-looking stew, her face etched with worry. A few of the younger children shiver in their thin clothes, huddling closer to a fire that seems to give off more smoke than warmth. The sight of their small, cold forms tugs at something deep inside you. Proper shelter, walls to keep out the wind and roofs to keep out the snow, could be the difference between a winter of discomfort and a winter of sickness and death. Yet your pragmatic mind argues back with cold logic. Empty bellies are a more certain killer than a cold wind. A secure food source, even a small late-season crop of hardy turnips or rye, would be a foundation for everything else. Without it, you would face the spring with a starving, weakened populace, unable to do the hard work of planting and building. Sickness you might fight, but starvation is a battle you cannot win. You weigh the immediate, visible suffering of your people against the invisible, future threat of famine. The two needs are in direct conflict, and you only have the hands and the time to serve one. You find yourself torn. One path offers comfort and health now, but a desperate gamble for food later. The other provides a cushion against starvation, but demands your people endure the coming cold in their current miserable state. The sun begins to set, its last rays painting the underside of the clouds in shades of orange and deep red. The sky seems to be mirroring the fire and blood of your internal conflict. You watch the colors fade to purple and gray, the air growing colder with the encroaching dusk. The sounds from the camp below seem more fragile now, the laughter of a child a fleeting, precious thing. The leader remains still, his patience a testament to his trust in your position, or perhaps a reflection of his own powerlessness. He is a farmer, a builder, but you are the one with the charter. The authority granted by that scroll of parchment feels less like a privilege and more like a curse. A good night's sleep seems a laughable fantasy. You'll be lucky to get any rest at all with this choice hanging over you. You remember an old saying from a stonemason you once knew. You can't build a good wall on a bad foundation. What is the foundation of this new town? Is it warm homes or is it full bellies? You think of the families, huddled together, their faces a mixture of desperation and a fragile belief in you. They have risked everything to follow you here, to this patch of wilderness. They deserve a leader who can see beyond the immediate moment, who can build something that lasts. At the same time, they also deserve a leader who can see their immediate suffering and act to ease it. The two desires pull at you, a physical strain in your chest. A sudden gust of wind, colder than the last, seems to make the choice for you, forcing a decision from your lips before you can second guess it again. Your mind focuses on the children, their shivering frames a powerful argument against any long-term plan that ignores their present misery. A community that cannot protect its most vulnerable from the elements feels like a failed community from the start. Food is essential, yes, but a town full of healthy, motivated people can solve a food shortage in the spring. A town weakened by a winter of sickness and death might not have the strength to plant anything at all. You turn to the grizzled man, his weathered face now cast in the deep shadows of twilight, and give him your command. The men will begin felling trees at first light. You will build shelter first.
The elder listens to your reasoning, his expression unreadable in the dimming light. He doesn't praise your compassion or question your logic. He simply gives another short, sharp nod, an acknowledgement that an order has been given and will be followed. He turns and walks back down the hill, his form merging with the shadows, leaving you alone with your decision. The distant sound of the axe has stopped. In its place, there is only the sound of the wind and the quiet crackle of the campfires below. You wonder if one of those fires just burned a little brighter. You look down at the charter in your hand, its edges fluttering in the breeze. It feels different now, not just a promise, but a record of your first true act of governance. The ink on the parchment represents the will of a distant lord, but the choice you just made was entirely your own. It was a choice born of compassion over cold calculation, a gamble on the strength and resilience of your people. You will face the consequences, whatever they may be, together. The weight of this new town, this community you are responsible for, begins to settle into your bones, a burden and a purpose all in one. You finally turn away from the view and make your way down towards the flickering lights of the camp. The smell of wood smoke grows stronger, a scent you now associate with the immense task ahead. The people watch you approach, their faces questioning. You do not need to speak. They will see the lumber crews forming in the morning. They will know the path you have chosen for them. For now, you share their fire, the gritty taste of hardtack still in your mouth, and prepare for the hard work that begins with the dawn. The first footprint has been made, the first stone of the foundation laid. You can only hope it was placed correctly.
The first raw season gives way to a fragile spring. The choice you made just months ago hangs over the settlement, a constant, tangible presence. If you focused on building shelters, the sturdy wooden huts now stand proudly against the wind,
their daub and wattle walls a mix of mud and woven lattice, keeping out the damp. But because of this, the sight of the small, hastily cleared field makes your stomach clench. The people are housed, but their hunger will soon be a pressing concern. Conversely, if you prioritized food, a wide, plowed field now dominates the landscape, its dark earth promising a modest surplus. This focus, however, means the shelters are crude, drafty things, and the lingering coughs of the children are a constant, rasping reminder of the winter's toll on their health. This reality, the direct result of your first command, is the foundation upon which you must now build. Standing on that same windswept hill, you look down not at a desperate camp, but at the beginnings of a community. The grizzled elder who first greeted you now joins your side, his presence familiar and grounding. He doesn't speak of past hardships, but a future shape. He gestures with a calloused hand towards the river, its surface glittering. Some families, he explains, have already begun to cluster there, digging shallow wells and valuing the easy access for washing and watering their single cow or pig. The logic is undeniable. Nearby, another farmer, his face still young but already weathered, points away from the water, toward the center of the flat-topped hill. He talks of safety, of grouping the homes tightly together, where a simple wooden wall could one day encircle everyone. This approach would make defense a shared and simple task. You descend from the hill to walk among the people and their homes, feeling the weight of the decision ahead. As you move, your boots sink into the soft ground, the earth already churned into mud in the most used pathways. The squelch and pull at your feet is a constant reminder of the lack of order. You see the wisdom in both arguments presented to you. A woman hauling 2 heavy wooden buckets of water from the river gives you a tired but grateful look. Living near the water would ease her daily burden immensely. A short while later, you watch a father teaching his son to fletch an arrow near the woods, his eyes constantly scanning the tree line. Being further from the river, but closer together, would grant him peace of mind. The sound of distant hammering is the settlement's heartbeat, each strike a blow that shapes its future. And you realize the pattern of that sound is for you to decide.
This is more than just placing houses. It is about drawing the very lines that will define life here for generations. On a piece of scraped animal hide, you have a crude map, a charcoal stick ready in your hand. One part of your mind, the part that craves order and fears the unknown threats of the wild, urges you to draw a compact grid. You picture a central square, a well, and orderly streets that could be easily walled and defended. Such a design would make governance simple and security a priority. Yet another part of you feels the pull of the river, the natural flow of the land. A more sprawling layout, following the river's curve, would give families larger plots, direct access to water, and a greater sense of personal space. It would be a town that breathes with the landscape, not one imposed upon it. You find yourself torn between the cold logic of defense and the gentle appeal of convenience. You study the farmer's own fields for inspiration. They have already begun the careful work of crop rotation, leaving one of their 3 great fields fallow, uncultivated for a season, to allow the earth to recover its strength. It is a slow, patient wisdom, a partnership with the land. Does that same wisdom apply to the town itself? Should you follow the natural contours and needs of the people, or impose a structure for a harsher future you can foresee? The farmers are experts in soil and season, but you must be an expert in society and survival. You begin to understand that their invaluable advice on where to plant barley is different from the burden you carry, deciding how a community itself should grow. They see the next harvest. You must try to see the next century.
The distant, rhythmic chop of an axe from the woods seems to count down the moments to your decision. Smoke curls from a dozen new chimneys, each plume representing a family that has placed its trust in your hands. You look at the soft give of the earth near the river, imagining the laughter of children playing by the water's edge. Then you look at the solid, defensible rise of the hill's center, imagining the security of a strong wall against a cold, dangerous world. Your charcoal stick hovers over the hide, the black dust staining your fingertips. After a long, quiet moment, you press down, the line you draw feeling as permanent as a scar upon the land. You choose to establish a compact, grid-like town center away from the river, valuing defense and order above all else. The decision made, you unroll the hide and show it to the elder and the other farmers. You point to the central square you have marked, the neat plots for homes, and the designated common land for grazing that will be shared by all. You explain that a deep well will be dug in the square, and that all will have a duty to help build the defensive stockade that will one day enclose this tight core. Some faces show understanding, even relief. They see the logic, the promise of safety in a world that is anything but safe. Others, especially the women who have been hauling the water, look disappointed. Their daily walk will now be longer, their chores harder. The new paths you have drawn will not be soft mud, but hard-worn earth, trod by people living closer to their neighbors than they might have wished. Immediately, the work of staking out the plots begins. The sound of mallets driving wooden pegs into the soil replaces the solitary axe blows. You are no longer just planning, you are building. You help stretch a rope line to mark the first true street, pulling it taut to ensure it is straight. As you work, you notice how close the plots are to one another. A stray spark from one hearth could easily reach the thatch of a neighbor's roof. The waste from one home will inevitably be near the doorstep of another. You have chosen order, but you realize that this choice will bring with it new problems of sanitation and conflict over shared resources. For now, however, there is a sense of common purpose, of a settlement taking a deliberate, unified shape under your guidance. As evening approaches, you stand back and observe the staked-out grid. It looks unnatural, an assertion of human will against the gentle curves of the land. It is a statement of intent. This will not be a simple village that grows as it pleases. It will be a town, built with purpose and an eye toward the future. The first fires are lit for the evening meal, their smoke rising in neat, parallel columns from the designated plots. You have drawn the lines, and the people are beginning to live within them. The convenience of the river has been sacrificed for the promise of a wall, a choice that will echo in every bucket of water hauled and every sleepless night feeling secure.
You run a hand over the rough surface of one of the marking stakes, its raw wood splintering slightly against your skin. This small piece of wood, and the hundreds like it now dotting the hillside, represents a future. It is a future of closer quarters, of shared defenses, and of challenges you can already begin to foresee. The grumbling over water access has already begun, a low murmur you will have to address. The sun sets, casting long shadows that stretch from the newly driven stakes, making them look like the bars of a cage or the foundations of a fortress, depending on your perspective. The air grows cooler, and the scent of wood smoke is strong as you walk through the beginnings of your orderly town. The sounds of the settlement are different now, closer and more confined. You can hear conversations from one hut to the next, the cry of a baby, the sharp words of a minor disagreement. It is the sound of a community being pressed together, for better or for worse. You have traded space for security, convenience for control. The map you drew is no longer just a plan on a piece of hide. It is becoming a reality of timber, mud, and human lives. The weight of this transformation, this act of creation, settles upon you more heavily than before.
You look from the rigid lines you have imposed on the landscape to the flowing, untamed river in the distance. The path you have chosen for these people is a harder one in the small moments of each day, but you believe it is the one that will allow them to survive the larger trials to come. The responsibility for that belief is yours alone. The raw earth, the sounds of community, the scent of the evening fires, these things are no longer just elements of a wilderness campsite. They are the components of a home you are shaping with every decision. You find yourself defined not by the land you are given, but by the lines you have chosen to draw upon it. Several seasons have turned since you first drew the lines of your settlement. The lean, anxious days have given way to something new, a feeling of fragile success. You notice it in the way people walk, with a straighter back and a quicker step. The granary, once a source of constant worry, is now respectably full. And the smoke that rises from the chimneys of the compact town you designed carries the scent of stews made with more than just root vegetables. This modest surplus, the first true fruit of your people's labor, has created a new and pleasant problem. A man who spends his days in the deep woods arrives with a bundle of soft, thick beaver pelts. Another, who has learned the magic of shaping river clay and hardening it with fire, presents a stack of sturdy, earth-red pots. They look to you, not with desperation, but with expectation. Following this new impulse for trade, you designate the open square at the heart of your planned town as the marketplace. Because you chose a tight, organized layout, the space is well defined, a clear center for the community's burgeoning life. On the first morning designated for trade, a nervous excitement ripples through the settlement. You walk through the square as people arrive, their footsteps soft on the damp earth. From a new communal oven built near the edge of the square, the rich smell of baking bread warms the cool morning. You watch a farmer carefully arrange a small pile of lumpy, oversized carrots, while his wife lays out combs of waxy golden honey. The air is filled with a low murmur of conversation, the occasional clucking of a chicken, and the sound of goods being placed on rough-spun blankets. It is the sound of a town taking its first breath.
This new energy, however, quickly reveals its sharper edges. You see the trapper, a quiet man of the woods, approach the potter. He holds up one of his finest pelts, its fur dark and glossy. In exchange, he points to a dozen of the potter's best vessels. The potter shakes his head, his face tight with frustration, gesturing that one pelt is only worth 2 pots. An argument begins, their voices rising above the general hum. Nearby, 2 farming families are engaged in a heated dispute over a patch of ground that gets the morning sun, each claiming it as the best spot to display their goods. The initial hopeful atmosphere begins to sour, replaced by the tension of conflicting desires. You realize that this new lifeblood of the town, commerce, will become poison if it flows without channels. You step between the trapper and the potter to examine their wares yourself, hoping your presence will cool their tempers. You run a hand over the potter's work. The clay is smooth and cool against your fingertips. The pot solid and well made, perfect for storing grain or water. Then, the trapper hands you a beaver pelt. It is surprisingly heavy, the fur thicker and softer than any wool, an object of real value that could be turned into a warm hat or a waterproof cloak for a long winter. You can see the logic in both their positions. The potter made a dozen pots in the time it took the trapper to catch and prepare 1 beaver. Yet the trapper's single pelt might keep someone from freezing to death. There is no easy measure of their worth against each other. This single dispute multiplies across the square. People are trading eggs for nails, woven cloth for dried fish, but every transaction is a lengthy, difficult negotiation. Some people, blessed with a quick tongue and a sharp mind for value, are clearly getting the better of their neighbors. You see one of the town's founders, a simple, honest farmer, trade away a whole sack of good barley for a single small iron knife that you know is not well made. The sight leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. This free-for-all, this chaotic clash of wants and needs, is rewarding the clever at the expense of the simple. It feels both wonderfully alive and deeply unfair. The energy is undeniable, but so is the potential for resentment that could curdle the community you have worked so hard to build.
As the leader, the responsibility to create order falls to you. You retreat to the edge of the square, watching the chaotic scene unfold. The sounds of haggling have grown louder, more insistent. The cheerful murmur from the morning has been replaced with a more competitive, strained collection of noises. You see 2 clear paths forward, 2 different shapes this town's heart could take. On one hand, you could impose fairness. You could create a set of official weights and measures. Declare that a bushel of wheat is worth 3 clay pots, and that a fine beaver pelt is worth a side of cured bacon. Stalls could be assigned by lottery each week, giving everyone an equal chance at the best spots. This would protect the vulnerable and ensure a sense of communal stability. On the other hand, a part of you is excited by the raw energy of the open negotiations. This is how towns grow, by rewarding ambition and skill. Allowing people to bargain freely would encourage them to innovate, to make better pots, or hunt for finer furs to gain an edge. The most successful would become wealthy, and their wealth would attract other skilled people to your town. It would be a faster, more dynamic path to prosperity, even if it meant some people would be left behind. Your desire for a just and fair community is at war with your ambition for a strong and prosperous one. The arguments in the square seem to fade as you wrestle with this fundamental choice about the nature of your town. You feel the weight of the future in this decision. The rules you make today will shape the character of your people for generations. Will they be a community that values fairness above all, even at the cost of slower growth? Or will they be a people who celebrate individual success, even if it creates a society of winners and losers? After a long moment, watching a shrewd woman trade a handful of shiny buttons for a whole chicken from a bewildered boy, your mind settles. The path becomes clear. You know what must be done to shape the economic soul of your town. You step onto a large tree stump in the center of the square, calling for silence. The haggling and arguing slowly die down as all eyes turn to you. They are waiting for your judgment, for the order that you represent. A part of you recoils from the risk of allowing the strong to dominate the weak. Yet your ambition for the town's rapid growth compels you forward. The vision of a bustling, wealthy town, a beacon of prosperity that attracts the best and the brightest, overcomes your instinct for cautious control. It is a risk, but one that promises greater rewards. You find yourself torn between the safety of strict rules and the potential of open competition. You see the faces looking up at you, the hopeful, the cunning, the simple, the ambitious. You must choose for them all. You choose to let the market find its own way. There will be no set prices, you declare, your voice carrying across the square. A thing is worth what someone is willing to trade for it. Find your own bargains. The best spot goes to the one who claims it first. You announce that trade should be free, driven by the skill and wit of the traders themselves, not by your decree. A cheer goes up from a small group of sharp-eyed individuals, while others, like the farmer who was swindled for his barley, simply stare with expressions of deep uncertainty. The noise of the market returns, but it is different now, harsher, faster, more competitive. You have made your choice. The immediate result is a flurry of activity. The clever negotiators thrive, their piles of goods growing as they make shrewd trades. The trapper, after a long argument, finally trades his single beaver pelt not for pots, but for a promise of a share of a farmer's fall pig, a much better bargain. Newcomers with valuable skills will surely hear of this place where their work can fetch its true price. But you also see the potter, unable to compete with the trapper's high-value good, packing up half of his unsold pots, his shoulders slumped in defeat. You have unleashed a powerful force, and you know you will have to live with both its creative and its destructive consequences.
This process of shaping an economy, of balancing the raw desires of individuals against the needs of a community, has now become a part of your town's story. The free market you allowed to flourish has done its work. Word of your town, a place where a person's skill and drive could earn them a good living, has spread faster than any official decree. Each week, new families arrive,
their carts piled high with their worldly goods and their faces full of hope. The compact, orderly settlement you planned is becoming crowded, its neat lines blurring under the pressure of new life. Walking the main path toward the market square, you find your breathing grows shallow, a response to the sheer number of people now sharing this small space. The murmur of voices is constant, a low hum of activity that never quite fades, even at night. This growth, however, has brought new sounds and smells. A blacksmith has arrived, and the rhythmic, deafening clang of his hammer on steel now echoes from dawn until dusk, a relentless beat that rattles the nerves. More disruptive still is the tanner, a craftsman vital for turning animal hides into leather. He set up his workshop near a communal well, and a sharp, stinging smell now drifts from his pits, a foul odor of animal decay and the harsh chemicals he uses. You see people hurry past his workshop, their noses wrinkled in disgust, and you yourself find you hold your breath as you pass. The taste of dust, stirred up by the constant foot traffic, is a permanent coating on your tongue. Because of this, the inevitable conflict arrives not as a surprise, but as a dreaded appointment. A group of the founding farmers, the same men and women who cleared the first fields with you, comes to see you. Their faces, usually open and familiar, are closed and grim. The elder who first greeted you on this land acts as their spokesman. He doesn't raise his voice, but his words are as hard as stone. He speaks of the tanner's stench spoiling their food and sickening their children, of the blacksmith's endless hammering making it impossible to rest. "We were here first," he says, his voice low and heavy with meaning. This was meant to be a place to live, not this.
They want the newcomers and their disruptive trades moved. Not just moved, but pushed to the very edge of the settlement, far from the homes and the central market. The request is simple, but you feel the complicated weight behind it. These are your people, the town's backbone, the ones who provide the food that sustains everyone. Their comfort and stability are the very foundation of this community. To ignore their complaint would be to betray the trust they placed in you from the very first day, when this was all just a windswept hill and a shared hope for the future. Later that day, the craftsman asked to speak with you. The blacksmith and the tanner stand before you, their hands stained with the evidence of their work. They are not apologetic. They are defensive and a little angry. The blacksmith explains that his forge must be near the center of town, where farmers bring tools to be mended and where merchants come to buy nails and hinges. The tanner argues that his work requires constant access to water from the well, and that moving him to the outskirts would make his trade impossible. "We came here because we heard this was a place to prosper," the tanner says, his eyes meeting yours. "Drive us out to the margins, and that prosperity leaves with us." Their argument is just as powerful as the farmers. These skilled workers bring coin and valuable goods into the town. Their presence is what separates this place from a simple farming village. They are the engine of its growth, the promise of its future. The free market you fostered needs them, thrives on their skills.
pushing them away might quiet the complaints, but it would also stifle the very ambition that is making your town known throughout the region. You realize you are standing at a fork in the road, with the town's past on one side and its future on the other.
You are caught in the middle. The weight of two opposing truths pressing down on you. The farmers are right. Their peace is being shattered. The craftsmen are also right. Their work is essential and requires a central location. Your mind turns the problem over and over. Forcing the new trades to the edge of town would restore the peace and please the founding families. It would keep the residential areas clean and quiet. But the cost would be high. You risk the craftsmen leaving for a more welcoming settlement, taking their valuable skills with them and branding your town as stagnant. On the other hand, you could side with the craftsmen. You could affirm their right to work where it is most profitable, near the heart of the town you laid out. To soothe the farmers, you could offer them new, larger plots of land, further from the center, compensating them for their trouble. This path would fuel the town's economic fire, ensuring it grows richer and more powerful. Yet, the bitterness it would create among the founders, the feeling that they, the originals, were being pushed aside for newcomers with loud forges and smelly pits, could curdle into a lasting resentment, poisoning the community from within. You walk to the edge of the settlement that evening and look back at the collection of workshops and homes. Smoke curls from a dozen chimneys, each one representing a family that has tied its fate to yours. You weigh the stability of the community against the engine of its future growth. It is a choice between the heart and the hands of your town. After a long silence, watching the shadows lengthen across the land, your decision settles. You know it will create a division, one way or another. You find yourself turning away from the view, your mind made up. You choose to support the craftsmen, allowing them to operate near the town center. But you will also offer the farmers new plots of land further away as compensation. The next day, you announce your decision. The craftsmen are relieved, their faces showing a gratitude that you know will soon turn into the confidence of a protected class. The farmers, however, receive the news with a stony silence that is far worse than shouting. They accept the offer of new land. It is a good offer, after all, but something has broken. You see it in the way they no longer meet your eyes in the market, in the way their conversations stop when you approach. You have chosen the town's wealth over its original soul, and a quiet resentment begins to grow in the very soil that first gave this place life. The consequences are immediate. With the security of your backing, the craftsmen invest in their workshops. The blacksmith expands, taking on 2 apprentices. The tanner, no longer fearing eviction, perfects his methods, and the leather he produces is soon sought by traders from a day's ride away. Other artisans arrive. A weaver whose cloth is remarkably fine,
a potter whose jars are stronger than any seen before. The town's economy booms, and the market square is a vibrant, chaotic hum of commerce. But as the town gets richer, it also becomes more divided. The founding families, now living further from the center, feel like outsiders in the place they built. They come to the market to sell their produce and see the craftsmen and their families dressed in finer clothes, their children playing with new wooden toys. A gap is forming, not just in distance, but in fortune and in feeling. You have secured the town's prosperity, but in doing so, you have sown the first seeds of a bitter social harvest. You realize you have not solved a problem, but merely transformed it into something that will grow in the shadows for years to come. You have built not just a town, but a society with all its deep and dangerous fractures.
The prosperity you fought to protect now has a distinct sound, a constant hum of activity that rises from the market square each morning. Because you allowed commerce to find its own way, the marketplace is a loud, sprawling heart at the center of your settlement. It is a chaotic but energetic mix of shouting merchants, haggling customers, and the clatter of the craftsmen's tools from their nearby workshops. You permitted them to stay close to the town's core, and their productivity has drawn in even more trade. This hum of progress is the music of your success. It is a sound you have come to rely on, a confirmation that your decisions have borne fruit. This vibrant energy, however, is about to be shattered by a very different kind of sound. It begins as a distant shout, then another, drawing people from their stalls and workshops. The noise builds until a man on horseback bursts into the open square, his animal lathered in foam, its sides heaving. The rider is one of your scouts, a man known for his calm demeanor. But you see none of that now. He nearly tumbles from the saddle, his face a pale mask of dirt and exhaustion. His breathing is a raw, ragged sound, each gasp a struggle. He stumbles toward you, clutching a small, notched piece of wood in his fist. He doesn't need to speak for a wave of unease to ripple through the crowd. His appearance is a message in itself. The familiar, comforting hum of the market dies, replaced by a tense and fearful silence. After a long drink of water that does little to wash the dust from his throat, the scout finds his voice. He reports seeing armed men, a day's ride away, flying the banner of a neighboring lord. This lord is a man with a reputation for being an opportunist, a wolf who preys on any sign of weakness. The scout's notched stick tells the grim story. Dozens of horsemen and at least 100 men on foot. They might simply be passing through his lands, a show of force for some other rival. But their path brings them dangerously close to your thriving and conspicuously undefended town. The coppery taste of fear finds its way into your mouth as you realize the very prosperity you've cultivated has made you a target. That evening, you gather the town's leading figures into the newly built meeting hall. The space is small, and the press of bodies makes your own breathing feel shallow. The air holds the scent of damp wool and anxious sweat.
Your guard captain, a former soldier with a face like scarred leather, speaks first. His voice is low and practical, cutting through the nervous chatter. He advocates for a stockade, a simple but strong defensive wall made of sharpened logs. His plan is direct. Every able-bodied man must drop his work immediately. The hammer, the loom, the plow, and start digging the trench and felling the trees. He insists it is the only way to present a strong enough defense to make the rival lord think twice about an easy raid. The moment he finishes, a wealthy weaver, his hands soft and clean compared to the captain's, rises to his feet. He has become a powerful voice among the merchants and craftsmen, benefiting greatly from your decision to support their central location and the free market. He argues passionately that halting all work would be an economic disaster. A large trade caravan from the south is expected within the week, an event that promises to bring more coin into the town than it has ever seen before. To shut down all commerce now would be to starve yourselves before a single sword is even drawn. He claims your open market is your true strength, not a weakness, and to abandon it out of fear is to abandon the very thing that makes the town worth defending. His argument resonates with the other craftsmen and traders in the room who murmur their agreement. They propose a different solution, a special tax to hire a small company of mercenaries, professional soldiers who could be paid to fight. This approach would allow business to continue, protecting the town's wealth while also providing a defense. They also suggest building a few wooden watchtowers at the town's edges to provide an early warning. The guard captain scoffs at this, shaking his head. He spits that mercenaries are only loyal to coin and might run at the first sign of real trouble, and that watchtowers without a wall to connect them are just invitations for an enemy to burn something. He looks directly at you, his gaze hard. A wall is honesty, he says. It shows them we are not afraid to bleed for our homes. You look from the captain's determined face to the merchant's pleading one. You feel the heavy, solid wood of the meeting table under your hands, an anchor in the swirling tide of opinion. The historical debate over the merits of a citizen militia versus professional soldiers is no longer a scholar's argument. It is a vital question being asked in this room, with the lives of your people hanging in the balance. The farmers, who have remained mostly silent since their disagreement with the craftsmen, seem to side with the captain. A work stoppage for them is simply a change in labor, not a loss of profit, and their connection to the land makes them instinctively protective of it. The rift you tried to mend between the groups now shows itself as a deep crack running right through this meeting hall. Your stomach tightens. The guard's plan for a stockade offers immediate, tangible security, a physical barrier built by the hands of your own people. It is a communal effort that would protect everyone equally. Yet, the merchants are right. Crippling the economy on the cusp of such a major opportunity could cause a different kind of death for the town. It could lead to poverty and decline, making you vulnerable in 1,000 other ways. Investing in paid soldiers is a modern, efficient strategy, but it relies on money you would have to demand from your people and on the loyalty of strangers. A stockade, however, is a promise made of wood and sweat. The two paths diverge sharply in your mind. One is the way of the farmer and the soldier, cautious, defensive, relying on communal strength and sacrifice. It protects the body of the town, but might starve its spirit of ambition. The other is the way of the merchant and the craftsman, bold, risky, relying on wealth and specialized skill. It feeds the town's ambition, but might leave its body exposed and vulnerable. You see the faces in the room looking at you, their hopes and fears resting on your judgment. The weight of their trust is heavier than any stone. You are torn between the instinct for immediate physical safety and the need to protect the town's long-term economic health. The silence in the room stretches on, broken only by the crackle of a torch in its wall sconce. You hear your own heart beating a slow, heavy rhythm against your ribs. The rival lord is out there, somewhere in the darkness, and his presence forces this choice upon you. You cannot have both a bustling economy and a town turned into a construction site. You cannot have both a wall of logs and a purse full of coin for mercenaries. One path feels safer, more certain. The other feels like a gamble on the future you have been trying to build. You close your eyes for a brief moment, picturing the terrified face of the scout and the vibrant energy of the market. The two images war in your thoughts. Finally, you open your eyes, your decision made. You push your chair back, the scraping sound loud in the quiet hall. All eyes are on you. You choose to command the immediate construction of a defensive stockade, halting all other work. A wave of relief washes over the farmers and the guard captain. By contrast, the merchants and craftsmen look devastated, their shoulders slumping in defeat. The weaver opens his mouth to object again, but you raise a hand for silence. You explain that a town that cannot protect its people has no right to seek profit. The caravan, you state, will have to be missed. The economy will recover, but lives lost cannot be replaced. Your words are firm, leaving no room for further debate. You have chosen the path of caution, prioritizing the physical security of your people over the potential for wealth. The immediate future will be one of hard labor, not of commerce. The meeting dissolves, the different groups leaving in quiet clusters, their feelings of victory or defeat palpable. You remain with the guard captain, spreading a crude map of the settlement on the table. For the rest of the night, you plan the digging of the ditches and the felling of the trees. The decision is made, and the consequences, whatever they may be, are now yours to bear. The urgent need for safety, a shadow from the world outside your small domain, now dictates your every move. The memory of the silent, expectant faces in the hall is now etched into your mind. The hastily built stockade now encircles your settlement, its raw, splintered logs a testament to your town's fear and resolve. The threat from the rival lord has passed. Scouts report his men moved on after seeing the new defenses. You gained security, but the cost was steep. Halting all commerce meant the expected trade caravan bypassed your town entirely, their silver going to another market. Now, a quiet hunger gnaws at the town's purse. The merchants are restless, and the craftsmen you fought to support find fewer buyers for their wares. This fragile piece feels precarious, built on wood and luck. To truly secure the town's future, to draw in the wealthy traders and establish laws that cannot be ignored, you need more than a wall of logs. You need a wall of words, sealed with a lord's authority. You need a formal charter. Preparing for the journey feels like a betrayal of the very work you have just completed. You leave the captain of the guard in charge, his hand resting confidently on the new stockade gate, while you set out with 2 companions on the road to your patron lord's castle. The path itself tells a story of power. It begins as the familiar muddy track you know so well, where cartwheels churn the earth into a thick paste. But as you travel further into the Lord's domain, the road changes. First, it becomes packed gravel, then, miraculously, fitted stone. The jarring motion of your horse smooths out, and the sound of its hooves changes from a soft squelch to a sharp, rhythmic clatter. You realize you are traveling on a surface that required more wealth and labor to build than your entire town currently possesses. It is a sobering reminder of the world you are about to enter. When the castle finally rises from the landscape, it does not seem to have been built upon the hill so much as grown from it, a formidable outcrop of gray stone and sharp angles. Its walls make your new stockade look like a child's fence. Guards in the Lord's livery, their steel caps gleaming, watch you approach from the battlements with an air of bored indifference. As you are led through the gatehouse, the grinding sound of the iron portcullis closing behind you echoes in the enclosed space, a definitive sound of leaving one world and entering another. Inside the castle courtyard, the air is different. It is cooler, shielded by the high stone walls, and the sounds of your town, the hammering of the blacksmith, the chatter of the market, are replaced by the clipped commands of knights and the quiet, purposeful movements of servants. You are guided into the great hall, and the sheer scale of the space makes you pause. Your footsteps, which seemed so solid on the stone road, now echo in the vast chamber, each one a small announcement of your presence in a place where you feel you do not belong. Sunlight streams through high arched windows, illuminating long, colorful tapestries on the walls. They depict great battles and hunts, weaving the Lord's history into threads of crimson and gold. The air is cool and carries a mixture of scents. The faint, clean smell of beeswax from dozens of candles, and the dry, ancient smell of cold stone. From a distant corridor, the rich aroma of roasting meat drifts, a scent of such casual abundance it makes your stomach tighten, reminding you of the careful rationing back home. You are brought before the Lord, who sits on a heavy wooden throne at the far end of the hall, and you suddenly feel the worn leather of your boots and the simple weave of your tunic. He listens as you make your case. You speak of the town's growth, of its loyalty, and of the new stockade, presenting it as proof of your commitment to defending his lands. You explain that your settlement has reached a critical point. It has people and industry, but lacks the legal standing that a charter provides. This document, a formal recognition of rights and privileges, would allow you to create a proper court, to guarantee ownership of land, and, most importantly, to attract the kind of merchants who will not risk their capital on an unrecognized backwater settlement. The Lord strokes his bearded chin, his eyes unreadable. He acknowledges your foresight in building the wall, but notes that a town is more than its defenses. It is an engine for his own prosperity. He agrees that a charter is in order, but his goodwill comes with a price, and he lays out the terms of your obligation. Your town will serve me, he states, his voice calm and clear, filling the hall without effort. How it serves is a matter for you to decide. He offers you a choice that will define your relationship with him and the future of your people for generations. You can pay your dues to me as an annual tax, a tribute of silver coin. It will be a heavy sum, fixed and predictable, due every autumn without fail. He pauses, letting the weight of that financial burden sink in. Or, he continues, leaning forward slightly, you can fulfill your obligation with men. You will be required to provide a levy of soldiers when I call for them, a set number of trained, able-bodied men for my wars. They will serve under my banner for as long as I have need of them. The room is silent, save for the faint crackle of a torch in a wall sconce. The two paths stretch out before you in your mind, both fraught with peril. A tax in coin feels like a clean, simple transaction, but the amount the Lord named is staggering. After the economic halt from building the stockade, your town's treasury is nearly empty. Such a tax would cripple your ability to fund any public projects. You would be unable to build a proper bridge, pave a single street, or dig a new well for years to come. It would be a constant, grinding pressure on every merchant and craftsman. Yet, it would keep your people home. Their lives and skills would remain within your walls, contributing to the town's slow but steady growth. The soldier levy, on the other hand, presents a different kind of cost. Financially, it would be a relief. The town would have more of its own money to spend on improvements. You could fund the projects that are desperately needed. But the price would be paid in blood and tears. To send your men away, the blacksmiths whose strength is needed at the forge, the farmers who must tend the fields, the sons and husbands who are the heart of their families, is a terrifying prospect. You fought to keep the craftsmen in the town center, recognizing their value. This levy would tear that valuable human resource away, perhaps forever, creating labor shortages and a grief that coin could never measure. You find yourself weighing the town's prosperity against its people, the cold glint of silver against the warm presence of a father in his home. The Lord watches you, his expression unchanging, waiting for your answer. He is offering you a choice between bleeding your treasury or bleeding your population. The silence in the great hall stretches, feeling as heavy as the stone walls around you. You think of the merchants, their faces tight with worry over lost profits. Then you think of the women and children who would watch their men march away, not knowing if they would ever return. The pragmatic need for wealth wars with the fundamental duty to protect your people from harm. You straighten your shoulders, the decision settling within you like a cold, heavy stone. You will choose the path that, while difficult, preserves the lives of those you lead. You choose to accept the annual coin tax. The Lord gives a slight nod, a flicker of what might be respect in his eyes. He signals to a clerk scribbling on a roll of parchment nearby, and the matter is settled. Your town's primary obligation is now recorded. You are dismissed with a wave of his hand. The audience concluded as swiftly as it began. As you walk back across the echoing floor of the great hall, the weight of your decision presses down on you. You have shielded your people from the horrors of war, but you have also placed a heavy yoke of debt upon their shoulders. Every future decision you make about the town's growth will now be filtered through the lens of this immense annual payment. It is both a shield and a chain. Leaving the imposing stone castle, the air outside feels warmer, the world more real. The journey back follows the same road, but your perspective has changed entirely. You are no longer just the founder of a settlement. You are a vassal, bound by a formal legal agreement. The charter, when it is drawn and delivered, will be a symbol of your town's legitimacy, a document that grants you rights and authority. But you now understand that every right comes with a responsibility, every privilege with a price. You feel the gravity of this new bond in the very marrow of your bones, a formal link of loyalty and obligation that will shape every aspect of your town's existence from this day forward. The charter from your lord, granting your town its legal standing, is a heavy document of thick parchment and dripping wax. Its weight, however, is felt most keenly in the town's near-empty coin chest. The first annual coin tax, a steep price for the Lord's protection and blessing, was paid just last month, leaving your treasury echoing with the memory of silver rather than its presence. This financial strain is a constant, quiet pressure in the back of your mind, a tally of every expense against a dwindling reserve. Consequently, when you walk the town's lanes, you see not just a thriving community, but a list of urgent needs you cannot afford to address, each one a testament to the cost of legitimacy. This cost is most obvious in the town's very ground. Because you chose to build a compact, defensible settlement, the narrow lanes have become channels of filth, especially after a rain. The ground, churned by countless boots, cartwheels, and animal hooves, rarely dries, and the squelch of mud underfoot is a constant companion. A foul smell from refuse pits and overflowing ditches catches in the back of your throat, forcing you to breathe more shallowly in the denser quarters. You see mothers pulling their children away from stagnant puddles, their faces pinched with worry. This problem, a direct result of your focus on security, is no longer a simple inconvenience. It is a threat to the health of everyone who lives here, a slow sickness brewing in the heart of your creation. To address this growing crisis, you call an assembly in the new meeting hall, a modest timber frame building that still smells of fresh sawed oak and pine resin. You stand before the assembled townsfolk, the farmers whose faces are etched by the seasons, the craftsmen with hands stained by their trades, and the merchants whose posture seems to improve with their wealth. As you lay out the problem, you see heads nodding in agreement. They all live with the mud and the stench. But when you explain the solution, a massive project to dig deep, stone-lined drainage channels and perhaps even pave the central square, and how it must be funded, a different mood settles over the hall. The moment you speak the word tax, the supportive nodding stops. A low rumble of discontent moves through the crowd, a sound you can feel in the floorboards. From this murmur, a single voice rises, clear and confident. It belongs to a merchant whose wealth is new but visible in the quality of his woolen tunic. A tax on every household? He asks, his voice carrying an edge of disbelief. Why should my family, who keep our own storefront clean, pay for the mess left by others? Let those who use a service pay for it. If you want to haul away refuse, charge a fee for it. If you build a bridge, charge a toll to cross it. That is the only fair way. A number of others, mostly the shopkeepers and wealthier artisans, voice their support, their calls for fairness echoing his sentiment.
Before the momentum can build against you, another figure stands to speak. It is the grizzled farmer who first greeted you on that windswept hill. His back now a little more bent, his hands permanently curved around the memory of a tool's handle. He waits for the noise to die down. "Fair?" he says, his voice rough but steady. "Is it fair that my fields feed the weaver who makes the merchant's cloth? We don't charge a toll for the air we all breathe or the rain that waters all our crops. A public good should be paid for by the public. A clean town benefits us all, from the richest to the poorest. We are a community, not a collection of customers." His simple words hang in the hall, and the room divides into two silent, stubborn camps. The sound of their opposing views echoes in your mind long after they fall silent. The merchant's idea of paying for what you use has a simple, clean logic to it, an appeal to individual responsibility that you cannot entirely dismiss. It seems, on its surface, to be the most just path. Yet the farmer's words about community feel truer to the spirit of what you have all built here together. A system of fees and tolls would inevitably burden the poor, who could least afford it, while a general tax spreads the responsibility across every shoulder. You are caught between a solution that appears fair and one that is deeply effective, between the logic of commerce and the spirit of commonwealth. You raise a hand for silence, and the dozens of pairs of eyes in the hall fix upon you. The smell of sweat and damp wool is sharp in the enclosed space, a physical reminder of the friction you have just created. Your heart pounds a steady rhythm against your ribs, the beat of a governor making a decision that will not be universally loved. After a long, heavy pause, you announce your decision. The project will be funded by a general tax on every household, levied according to the size of their plot. It is the only way to ensure the work is done quickly and for the benefit of all. A wave of grumbling washes over the merchant side of the hall. while a quiet, grim acceptance settles over the farmers.
The first tax collection day is a grim affair. You set up a table yourself in the market square, determined to face the consequences of your decree directly. Some people hand over their few coins with a resigned sigh, others with a resentful slap of metal on wood that makes you flinch. One man, a potter, mutters just loudly enough for you to hear. First the Lord's share, now yours. A man can't even own his own sweat anymore. The words sting more than any open shout of anger. You have provided them with security, with a charter, with a market. But today, you are not a founder. You are a taker, your name now associated with a loss. Work begins on the stone-lined channels and ditches within the week. The sounds of quarrying and the chip, chip, chip of masons shaping stone replace the town's usual hum. It is progress, undeniable and visible. Yet there is little joy in it. The workers are paid from the tax levy, and those who are not working on the project watch with sullen eyes, seeing their money being spent. You overhear a joke that makes its way through the lanes. The new town motto is "Pay up and shut up." You are building a cleaner, healthier town, but you are also building a wall of resentment, brick by resentful brick. As you stand by the first completed section of stone gutter, watching clear rainwater run freely where filth once pooled, you feel a strange mix of pride and isolation. The smooth gray stones are a mark of your authority, a permanent symbol of a difficult choice made for the common good. But in making that choice, you have fundamentally changed your relationship with these people. You are no longer just their leader. You are their governor, the one who takes their money to shape their world. Your authority, paid for with their coin and disapproval, has etched you into the very foundation of this place. The charter from your lord, a heavy roll of parchment with a dangling wax seal, now sits secured in a wooden chest. It is a promise of rights, a mark of legitimacy, but it does not pave your streets or clean your gutters. This document grants you the authority to govern, but the real work of building a town remains, paid for not in promises, but in labor and coin. The compact way you designed the town, with homes and workshops clustered together for safety, has created a new, unseen enemy. A foulness lingers in the narrow lanes after a rain, and the ditches you had dug for waste now overflow. Sickness, a quiet thief, visits homes more often than it should, stealing the strength of your people. It is a problem that can no longer be ignored. Because of this, you stand before the town's first formal assembly. The meeting hall, built with the timber you chose to prioritize seasons ago, is packed with the faces of those who followed you here. Farmers with soil still under their nails stand beside craftsmen whose hands are stained with dyes and soot. You can feel the collective warmth of their bodies in the enclosed space, and the smell of damp wool, sweat, and nervous anticipation is unmistakable. The annual coin tax you agreed to pay the Lord already bites deep into the town's earnings, a constant drain on the new prosperity you have all worked hard to build. Now you must ask
for more, not for a distant lord, but for themselves. You lay out the plan for a system of stone-lined channels to carry waste away from the homes and towards the river, a project that would improve the health of everyone. The explanation is clear and the need is obvious, yet when you speak of the cost, a deep murmur of discontent ripples through the crowd. Dozens of pairs of eyes fix upon you, and you feel their weight. You are no longer just the founder who shared their first harsh winter. You are the authority, demanding a piece of their meager earnings. This moment changes your relationship with them, and you can feel the shift in the very air of the room, a tension that was not there before. One of the more successful merchants, a man whose stall in the market is always busy, steps forward. His voice is smooth and confident as he speaks for many of the craftsmen and traders. He argues that a general tax is unfair. Let those who use a service pay for that service, he declares, suggesting a fee for each household to have its waste collected. Why should a weaver living on a clean lane pay the same as a tanner with his filthy pits? This logic seems appealing on the surface, a solution that appears just. A smattering of applause follows his words, mostly from the side of the hall where the wealthier artisans stand. In response, the old farmer who first greeted you on this land, his face now a map of wrinkles and hard seasons, speaks up. His voice is rougher, but it carries a different kind of weight. He argues that the town is one body, and a sickness in one part affects the whole. When my neighbor's children are sick from the foul water, is that not my concern? A public good must be paid for by all, as all will benefit from the health of their neighbors, he says simply. His words resonate with the farmers and the laborers, the people who live closest together and know how quickly sickness can spread from one door to the next. The hall falls silent, the two opposing ideas hanging between the wooden rafters. You are caught between these two visions of your town, a collection of individuals paying their own way, or a community sharing its burdens. The merchant's idea of user fees is tempting. It would cause less immediate anger. Yet your mind races ahead, seeing the consequences. It would be a system that favors the wealthy, allowing them to pay for cleanliness, while the poor might be forced to let filth pile up, creating pockets of disease that would inevitably spread. It would also be slow and difficult to collect, likely leaving the project underfunded for years. A general tax, on the other hand, is a heavy-handed act. It feels like a seizure of their hard-earned money, a command rather than a request. This decision is not about stone channels and ditches. It is about the kind of community you are building. You find yourself torn between the path that seems fair and the one you know will be effective. A tax feels like a betrayal of the simple hope that brought these people here. But allowing the town to sicken from its own waste feels like a greater failure. You look from the merchant's expectant face to the farmer's steady gaze. The desire for a simple, fair solution battles with the grim knowledge that leadership sometimes requires difficult, unpopular choices for the greater good. The responsibility feels like a physical weight on your shoulders. After a long silence, you make your choice. You choose the path of shared burden. You announce that a general tax, a small percentage taken from every household based on their property, will fund the new sanitation system. A wave of angry shouts and disappointed groans rises from the crowd. The merchant turns away in disgust, while the farmer gives you a slow, understanding nod. In that moment, the project is saved, but something precious is lost. You have asserted your power, and the people have felt it not as a guiding hand, but as a firm grip on their purses. The assembly dissolves into clusters of heated, unhappy conversations. The sound of that single angry merchant's voice echoes in your memory as you watch them leave, his words about fairness poisoning the air. The project will move forward efficiently, and in a year, the town will be cleaner and healthier. Children who might have died will live. But the cost is a new and lasting resentment. The idea of your money being taken by force has been planted in their minds, a bitter seed that will sprout into future troubles. You remain in the empty hall long after the last person has gone. The lingering scent of anxiety and sweat a ghost in the room. The decision was necessary, you tell yourself, the only way to protect the town from itself. Yet the feeling of all those eyes on you, the shift from respect to resentment, is a heavy burden to carry. The echoes of their anger will follow you through the very streets you are trying to build. The sanitation system you funded with the general tax is a quiet success, with fewer children lost to summer sicknesses than ever before. But this victory is unseen, buried beneath the ground in pipes of clay and stone. What the townsfolk do see every single day is the growing gap between the wealthy and the poor. The free market you established, once a source of vibrant energy, has sharpened the town's edges. A handful of merchants now live in spacious timber frame houses, their wives wearing dyed wool, while many of the original farming families and day laborers still live in wattle and daub huts, their clothes the color of dirt and straw. The tax, meant to benefit all, feels to them like another coin taken from a nearly empty purse to line a pocket already full. This quiet bitterness finds its catalyst not in a tax, but in an act of God. A late, cruel frost in the spring blackens the young wheat shoots in the fields. The harvest that follows is meager, and the price of flour begins to creep upwards. At first, it is just a murmur in the marketplace, a tighter grip on a coin pouch. But as summer wanes and the town's granaries remain stubbornly half empty, the murmur grows into a growl. You see it in the way people's gazes linger on the baker's stall, not with hunger, but with anger. Conversations in the tavern fall silent when you or one of the wealthier merchants enter. The town you built has divided itself into two peoples, those who eat and those who watch. The discontent finds its voice in the town priest. He is a lean man with a fire in his eyes, who has always been more comfortable with the poor than the powerful. His Sunday sermons, once focused on scripture and salvation, now turn to the sins of greed and usury, the practice of lending money at unfairly high interest. He does not name names, but he does not have to. When he speaks of men whose wealth is built on the empty stomachs of children, every eye in the church turns towards the merchant's pew.
He preaches that a community is a body, and a sickness in one part will poison the whole. His words are a balm to the resentful and a spark to the angry, giving their hardship a righteous cause.
Following this shift in tone, the first acts of open defiance appear. One morning, you find a crude drawing chalked onto the door of your administrative building. It depicts a stick figure with a crown, you, handing a large bag of coins to a bloated, fat figure while a gaunt family weeps in the corner. Similar marks appear on the homes of the weavers and merchants guildmasters. These are not just childish insults, they are accusations. Then, at night, a new sound joins the familiar rhythm of the town. From the poorer quarters, you can hear the faint, rhythmic sound of chanting, the words indistinct, but the tone unmistakable. It is the sound of a pot left too long on the fire, a low rumble that promises to boil over. And then it does. The catalyst is a rumor that one of the chief merchants is hoarding grain, waiting for the price to rise even higher before he sells. Whether true or not, it is enough. A crowd gathers in the market square, drawn by a furious energy. The priest stands on an overturned cart, his voice ringing out over the assembled heads. He is joined by a farmer you recognize, one of the original settlers who argued against the craftsmen setting up in the town center so long ago. His face is a mask of grim fury. They are not asking anymore, they are demanding. Demanding that you, their leader, seize the hoarded grain. Demanding that you set a fair price for bread. Demanding a forgiveness of all debts owed to the merchants. Soon, the crowd is on the move. They surge from the market square and down the main street, heading directly for you. The sound reaches you before they do. A harsh mix of sounds, 1,000 angry voices shouting as one, punctuated by the rhythmic stamping of hundreds of feet. You feel it as much as you hear it, a low vibration that travels through the soles of your boots and up into your bones. You move to the window of your hall and see them coming. The sun has set, and they carry torches, the flames casting a flickering, monstrous light on their faces. The smoke from the torches stings your eyes, even from this distance, a sharp, resinous smell that catches in the back of your throat. They are no longer just your citizens. They are a mob, a single creature of anger and hunger. You see farmers armed with pitchforks, blacksmiths' apprentices carrying hammers, and women with rocks clutched in their hands. They are the people who built this town with you, whose labor turned an empty hillside into a home. Now, their faces are twisted with a rage that is aimed squarely at the order you have tried to create. Their chants are clearer now. Fair price, no debt. Fair price, no debt. The ground itself seems to tremble with their advance, a physical manifestation of the town's breaking point. The captain of your small guard force is at your side, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. His knuckles are white. "We must disperse them," he says, his voice low and tight. "A show of force. My men can push them back from the square. We arrest the priest and the farmer, and we set a curfew. It will be ugly, but it will restore order. Let them see that we will not be ruled by threats." He is a man of action, and he sees a straightforward solution. Cut off the head of the snake
and the body will wither. To him, this is an infection that must be purged before it consumes everything. Your clerk, an older man who has recorded every deed and dispute since the town's founding, offers a different perspective. He wrings his hands, his face pale in the torchlight from the window. Or we could talk to them, he suggests, his voice barely a whisper against the roar from outside. Meet their leaders, not the priest perhaps, but others. Offer them something. We could release a portion of the grain from the town's own stores, a temporary measure. It would show them you are listening. It would calm them. His path is one of peace, but you see the danger in it as well. To give in to their demands now, under threat, would set a precedent. It would teach them that the loudest voice and the sharpest pitchfork get what they want.
You are caught between the sword and the olive branch. Your guard captain's advice appeals to your need for control, for the preservation of the authority you have spent years building. The thought of your town descending into chaos, of mob rule replacing law, makes your stomach tighten. To let this challenge stand is to invite another and another after that until everything unravels. Order must be maintained. It is the foundation upon which everything else is built, and without it, you have nothing but a collection of huts in the wilderness again. On the other hand, your clerk's words resonate with the part of you that still sees the faces in the crowd not as a mob, but as your people. You remember their hope on the day you all first arrived. You know their children by name. The priest's accusations sting because they hold a sliver of truth. Have you allowed prosperity to become a wall that divides your people? To answer their desperation with violence feels like a betrayal of the very purpose of this settlement. Compassion is not weakness, and a leader who does not listen to his people is no leader at all. Your gaze drifts back to the crowd. You can see the priest clearly now, his arms outstretched as he preaches to the furious assembly. They have stopped before your hall, a sea of torches and anger held back only by a thin line of your nervous guards. The harsh mix of sounds is deafening. The air smells of smoke and sweat. Your instinct for order wars with your sense of compassion. A show of force would be swift and decisive, but it would create a wound that might never heal, ruling a town that fears you instead of follows you. Negotiation might avert bloodshed, but it could permanently weaken your authority, making you a servant to every future demand.
You find yourself torn between the iron fist and the open hand. The noise of the crowd presses in, demanding an answer. The captain of the guard waits for the command to draw steel. The clerk waits for the word to draft a compromise. In this moment, you are not just deciding how to handle a riot. You are deciding what kind of ruler you will be. After a long, tense moment, watching the firelight dance in the desperate eyes of your people, you turn away from the window. You make your choice. You choose to respond with negotiation and concession, believing that a broken community is a greater failure than a tested authority. You instruct the clerk to prepare a formal offer, a one-time release of grain from the town's emergency stores to be sold at a reduced price. It is a significant concession,
one that will quiet the immediate hunger, but not the underlying anger. You then order your guard captain to stand his men down, but to remain vigilant. As you give the orders, you feel the weight of the path you have chosen. You have opted for peace, but in doing so, you have shown everyone in the town that their leader can be moved by force of numbers and the threat of violence. You have understood a new, unsettling truth about the town you have built. It is a living thing, with a will of its own, and it can turn on you. The fragile peace you secured through negotiation now rests upon the town like a thin blanket of morning mist, easily burned away. Though the angry shouts in the market have subsided, the memory of that discontent lingers. You walk the lanes not with the easy confidence of a founder, but with the careful tread of a leader who knows how precarious a community can be. The paths are churned to a thick mud from a recent rain, and you have to pick your way carefully to avoid the worst of it. A cart heavily laden with firewood is stuck fast, its wheels sinking into the muck while the driver curses. This is more than an inconvenience. It is a constant drag on the town's energy and progress, a daily reminder of its raw, unfinished state. Moving into the more crowded quarters, the problem becomes much worse. Here, the mud is not just earth and water. You pull your cloak higher over your nose as you pass a narrow alleyway where household waste is simply tossed from windows. A foul, stagnant stream trickles down its center, the source of a stench that catches in the back of your throat. Flies buzz in lazy clouds over the heaps of refuse. You notice a woman tipping a bucket of slop from her doorway, her face apologetic but resigned. This filth is not just an assault on the senses, it breeds sickness. You have seen more children with summer fevers this year than the last, and the shallow ditches dug for waste are now just overflowing ponds of unhealthy air and tainted water. The concessions you made to quiet the unrest feel hollow when the very ground beneath your people's feet is a source of misery. Because of this pressing need, you summon two of the town's most respected minds to your administrative hall. The first to arrive is the master mason, a broad-shouldered man whose hands are perpetually dusted with stone powder. He unrolls a piece of parchment on the table with a confident slap, revealing a drawing of the market square, but transformed. In his vision, the muddy ground is replaced by neat gray cobblestones. He speaks with a booming voice of permanence and prestige. He describes how the sound of iron-rimmed wheels on stone is the sound of prosperity, how merchants from afar would be drawn to a town that respects itself enough to pave its ways. He picks up a sample paving stone from his satchel and places it on the table. You run a hand over its surface. It is cool, solid, and wonderfully smooth. It feels like the foundation of a city, not just a town.
The mason's argument is compelling, focused on the town's image and its economic future. He points out that clean, dry streets would make the market more appealing, allowing trade to continue even in wet weather. Furthermore, he explains that such a visible project would be a powerful symbol of your leadership and the town's recovery from its recent troubles. It would show the lord, traders, and even the common folk that this settlement is not a short-lived venture, but a permanent and thriving place. A grand project, he insists, would unite people in a common purpose, giving them pride in their home and washing away the memory of their recent divisions with a tide of progress. The idea of erasing the physical mess and the social strife in one grand gesture is deeply tempting. Just as the mason finishes, a quieter man enters. It is a monk from the small priory on the hill, a scholar known for his study of old texts. He carries not a stone, but a roll of brittle-looking diagrams copied from ancient Roman books. He waits for the mason to fall silent before he speaks, his voice calm and measured. He does not talk of prestige, but of life. He points to the sickness in the town, the tainted wells, the constant foulness. His solution is not visible, it is buried. He proposes a system of baked clay pipes and stone-lined channels, a network that would bring fresh water from an upland spring into a central fountain, and, more importantly, carry the town's waste away to a settling pond far downriver. The monk's plan is one of hidden genius, a direct assault on the root cause of the town's ill health. He shows you a cross-section of a clay pipe, surprisingly light yet strong. He explains that with cleaner water and the removal of filth, the summer sicknesses that plague the children would lessen. People would be healthier, stronger, and more productive. It is an investment not in the town's appearance, but in the very resilience of its people. Unlike the paved roads, this great work would be almost entirely unseen once completed. It offers no grand spectacle, only the quiet, daily reality of a cleaner, healthier life. It is a choice between the immediate glory that all can see and a deeper strength that only a few will understand.
Your mind is a battlefield between these two visions. The town's treasury, strained by the need for guards and the annual tax to your lord, can only fund one project, not both. You pace the room, the cool smoothness of the mason's paving stone under one hand, the earthy texture of the monk's clay pipe in the other. Paved roads are a clear, visible sign of success, an answer to the mud and a beacon for commerce. The sanitation system is a hidden investment in your people's future, a silent guardian against an unseen enemy. You think of the merchants you wish to attract, and then you think of the faces of the children with fevers. One path looks to a town that looks impressive, the other to a town that is strong from its core. The weight of the decision settles on you. Do you build for the eyes of outsiders or for the bodies of your citizens? Do you choose the symbol of progress or the substance of it? The memory of the recent unrest pushes you. A grand public work like paving the square could be seen as a vanity project, benefiting the rich merchants most, while the poor still live in squalor. Yet, a hidden network of pipes might seem like a waste of money to those who cannot see its immediate effect. After a long silence, you look from the boisterous mason to the patient monk, your gaze finally resting on the plans for the underground channels. You choose to invest in the health of your people, betting that a strong populace is the truest foundation of a prosperous town. You choose the water and sanitation system.
You place a hand on the monk's diagrams, a silent signal of your decision. The mason snorts in disappointment, but bows his head in acceptance, gathering his plans and his sample stone. The monk, however, simply gives a slow, respectful nod, his eyes showing not triumph, but a deep sense of shared responsibility. You give the orders to begin surveying the land and establishing a clayworks for the thousands of pipes that will be needed. The task is immense, far larger than simply laying stones, and it will require the work of nearly every able-bodied person in the coming year. You know you have chosen the harder, less celebrated path. But as you dismiss the monk, you take a drink of water from your own cup, and the simple act feels like a promise. You hold the weight of this choice as you prepare to explain it to the town you are trying to save. The sanitation system you championed has changed the town in ways both seen and unseen. Children who once might have succumbed to summer sickness now run laughing through the lanes, their energy a constant hum beneath the town's daily work. Because of this improved health, the population is not just larger, but more productive. Craftsmen, in particular, have flourished. They are no longer scattered individuals, but have organized themselves into powerful groups called guilds, which set standards for their work, train apprentices, and look after their members in times of hardship. The weavers, masons, blacksmiths, and tanners have become the town's new beating heart, their workshops lining the cleaner, if still unpaved, streets. This organization has brought immense prosperity. The Weavers' Guild mark, a small stitched knot on the corner of a bolt of cloth, is now known in distant markets as a sign of quality. This process, known as hallmarking, ensures that goods from your town fetch a higher price and that wealth flows back into the community. The guilds have built their own halls, modest timber buildings, but grand in the eyes of the townsfolk, that serve as meeting places and social centers. They have become small governments unto themselves, powerful, proud, and fiercely protective of their interests. For a time, their pride was a source of strength for the whole town. However, where there is power, conflict soon follows. The trouble begins between the Weavers' Guild and the Dyers' Guild, the two richest and most vital pillars of your town's economy. A dispute erupts over the price and quality of woad, the plant used to create the deep blue dye so popular with foreign merchants. The weavers accuse the dyers of using inferior plants to cut costs, resulting in cloth that fades. In turn, the dyers claim the weavers are demanding impossibly low prices while supplying them with loosely woven fabric that won't hold color properly. The argument, once a low murmur in the marketplace, has escalated into a full-blown feud.
The tension finally breaks when the Weavers' Guild master announces they will no longer sell their undyed cloth to the dyers. In retaliation, the Dyers' Guild master vows that not a single thread from the weavers will be colored in their vats. Suddenly, the town's most profitable industry grinds to a halt. Carts loaded with plain wool sit idle, and the dyeing vats cool, their pungent odor fading for the first time in years. The economic lifeblood of the town is clotting, and the silence from the workshops feels more menacing than the loudest argument. You summon both guild masters to your administrative building. They arrive separately, refusing to walk the street together. The master weaver enters first, a man whose hands are soft from handling fine threads, but whose face is rigid. The oily pastoral scent of lanolin and wool seems to follow him into the room. Minutes later, the master dyer arrives. His arms are stained a permanent mottled blue up to the elbows, and he carries a sharp chemical smell of mordants and fermented dyes that makes you subtly wrinkle your nose. They stand on opposite sides of your chamber, refusing to look at each other. Their voices, when they speak, are as hard and unyielding as stone. The weaver lays out a bolt of faded blue cloth on your table, its vibrant color dulled to a pathetic gray blue. This is what his corner cutting does to our reputation, he states, his voice low and tight with anger. The dyer scoffs, gesturing with his stained hands. He supplies me with cloth as thin as a cobweb and expects me to work miracles. He squeezes my prices until my members cannot afford to buy the best woad. They are not here to talk. They are here to demand you validate their position and punish the other. After you dismiss them, the room feels unnervingly quiet. Their competing scents linger, a strange mix of the farm and the workshop, a testament to the complex chain of production they have broken. The memory of the farmer's riot years ago surfaces in your mind. Then you chose negotiation, a path of concession that calmed the immediate anger, but perhaps showed that you could be pressured. The town survived and even thrived, but a precedent was set. Authority, once bent, is harder to straighten.
You see the danger clearly now. If this feud continues, both guilds will face ruin, and merchants will seek their goods elsewhere, damaging the town's name for a generation. Two paths stretch before you, each fraught with peril. The first is to act as the ultimate judge. You could summon them again, listen to their final arguments, and issue a binding ruling, setting the price for cloth, dictating the quality of dye. This would be a swift, clean assertion of your authority, a reminder that the guilds, for all their power, still operate under your governments. It would end the crisis now. The other path is more complex. You could create something new, a town council, with a seat for the master of each major guild. You could grant this council the power to resolve its own disputes, forcing the weaver and the dyer to sit at the same table and find a solution themselves, as their fates would be tied together. This approach would delegate power, turning this crisis into an opportunity for them to learn self-governance. It would be a long-term solution, not just for this problem, but for all the ones that will surely follow as the town grows more complex. Your mind is a battlefield. The desire for direct control, for a swift and decisive end to this foolishness, pulls you one way. Issuing a ruling would be satisfying, a clear demonstration of leadership. Yet the thought of the future gives you pause. A council would force these powerful men to become statesmen, to think of the town's health, not just their own craft's profit. It would take power from your hands, but it might also plant the seeds of a more resilient, independent government that could outlast you. Your choice will not just end this dispute. It will define the very structure of power in this town for decades to come.
You find yourself torn between the hammer and the loom, the swift strike of a ruling versus the slow weaving of a new political body. The memory of your past decisions guides you. You have consistently bet on the long-term health of the community over short-term displays of power. Creating a system that can manage itself seems a continuation of that philosophy. After a long silence, watching a single shaft of afternoon light cross the room, you make your decision. You will not be their judge. You will be their guide. You call the guildmasters back. They enter with the same sullen expressions, expecting a verdict. Instead, you lay out your proposal for a town council. You will settle this matter, you tell them, your voice even. You and the masters of the masons, the blacksmiths, and every other guild will sit together. You will write your own rules for trade, and you will enforce them. The prosperity of this town is in your hands, not just mine. You watch their faces for a reaction, seeing surprise, then a slow, calculating flicker of understanding in their eyes. They are speechless for a moment. The dyer looks at his blue-stained hands, then at the weaver. The weaver, in turn, stares at the charter from the Lord hanging on your wall, as if seeing for the first time that it grants rights not just to you, but to the town itself. There is no immediate agreement, no handshake, but the hard lines of their anger soften into something else, the heavy contemplation of new responsibility. They leave not as enemies, but as rivals who have been forced to consider a shared future. The room is finally still, the air clear of their conflicting scents. You have given away a piece of your authority, and in its place, you have created a new center of power. Whether it will become a source of stability or a future challenge to your own rule is a question only time can answer. The weight of this new, uncertain political landscape settles upon you, a burden heavier than any single ruling you could have made.
The years following the establishment of the town council have settled into a rhythm of productive, if sometimes noisy, governance. Your decision to invest in the town's underlying health rather than its outward appearance has borne unexpected fruit. With clean water from the new system of clay pipes, the brewer's ale is crisper, the dyer's colors are more true, and the tanner's hides are cured with fewer imperfections. Consequently, the health of your people is noticeably better. Fewer children are lost to summer sicknesses, and the workers have a resilience that neighboring settlements lack. This quiet reality has become your town's reputation, not a place of grand avenues, but one of reliable, high-quality goods. This reputation has now traveled further than you ever anticipated, carried on merchant barges and in travelers' tales. Because of this growing renown, you are not entirely surprised when a small, well-armed delegation arrives, their clothing and accents marking them as foreigners from a distant port city. Their leader, an envoy for a powerful merchant league, carries himself with an unnerving confidence, his gaze sweeping over your sturdy but plain town hall with an appraising look that mixes dismissal with opportunity. He presents you not with a simple request to trade, but with a formal proposal, contained within a sealed scroll. You break the wax seal with your thumb, and a strange, spicy scent like dried cloves and faraway deserts rises from the crimson wax, a smell utterly alien to the familiar wood smoke and damp earth of your town. The parchment itself feels different from the rough local stuff. It is thin, crisp, and smooth under your fingers, a product of a world with more resources and refinement. The envoy is invited to present his league's offer before the town council, the very body you established to resolve internal disputes. Now it faces its first major external decision. The guildmasters and elders take their seats around the heavy oak table, their faces set with a mixture of suspicion and greed. The envoy unrolls the scroll and, in a clear voice that cuts through the quiet chamber, details the proposition. The League will offer a 10-year contract to buy every bolt of woolen cloth your weavers can produce, at a price 20% higher than any current market rate. The payment will be in silver coin, guaranteed. The chamber buzzes with sharp intakes of breath. Such an arrangement would bring a flood of wealth that could transform the town overnight, funding every project you have ever postponed.
This initial wave of excitement, however, is quickly followed by the envoy's conditions. In return for this incredible prosperity, your town must grant his league an exclusive monopoly. No other merchants would be permitted to buy your wool for export, and all other traders would be subject to a new, higher tariff in your market, while the League's own merchants would trade tax-free. The master weaver, his eyes wide with the vision of endless silver, slams his hand on the table, proclaiming it a gift from God. He speaks of the security it would bring, an end to the yearly struggle of finding reliable buyers and haggling over prices. His words paint a picture of a future where his guild, and by extension the entire town, is lifted from the muck of uncertainty into an era of unprecedented wealth. He insists that such an opportunity will never come again. Immediately following his declaration, the master mason rises to speak, his voice a low rumble of caution. He argues that the deal, while sweet on its surface, has a poisonous root. He speaks of independence, reminding the council of how you all started with nothing but the land and your own hands. To chain the town's primary industry to a single distant buyer, he warns, is to place your collective neck in a noose held by strangers. What happens, he asks, if this league has a bad year, or finds a cheaper source of wool elsewhere, or gets into a war? The contract is only for 10 years. After that, they would have no other trading partners to fall back on, having alienated all their old connections. He fears the town would forget how to stand on its own feet, becoming a dependent servant rather than a proud, self-sufficient community. The envoy, sensing the shift in the room, steps forward with a practiced, reassuring smile. He dismisses the mason's concerns as the fears of a small man unused to the grand movements of global trade. To demonstrate the quality of life his league represents, he produces a small, dark green bottle and several delicate glass cups, items of a fineness rarely seen in your town. He pours a deep red wine, its scent rich with berries and sunshine. He offers a cup to you and the council members. You take a sip. The taste is complex and smooth, a world away from the rough, honest ale brewed locally. It tastes of wealth, of power, of a life where such luxuries are commonplace. It is a potent, silent argument, a liquid promise of the future he is offering. This single taste does more to sway the wavering members than an hour of talk. As the council erupts into heated debate, you feel a deep conflict stirring within you. The promise of such riches is a powerful lure. Your mind immediately calculates all that could be accomplished. You could finally afford to pave the main roads, silencing the constant complaints about mud. A new, larger bridge could be built, and the
town's simple wooden stockade could be replaced with a proper stone wall. The Lord's annual coin tax, a constant source of strain, would become a trivial expense. This deal offers a shortcut to the very prosperity you have worked so hard to build slowly, piece by piece. It feels like a reward for all the difficult years, a chance to see your vision for a great town fully realized within your lifetime. The sheer seductive power of that idea is immense, a warm tide pulling you toward acceptance. Yet, a colder, deeper current pulls you back. You look at the faces around the table, the weaver's greed, the mason's anxiety, the brewer's concern that his trade would be ignored in a town focused only on wool. You remember the early days, the struggle to survive, and the pride in every small victory won through your own community's effort. You think of the choice to build the sanitation system, a decision for long-term health over short-term appearance. This feels like the same kind of choice, but on a much larger scale. Accepting the League's offer would be tying the health of your entire economy to the whims of a foreign power. The independence you have so carefully guarded would be sold for silver, and the diverse, resilient community you have nurtured could wither as all resources are funneled into one specialized, vulnerable industry. The arguments rage on, but you no longer hear the words. Instead, you see two distinct paths stretching out before you. On one path, the town glitters. Its streets are paved, its buildings are made of fine new stone, and its merchants wear silk. But its fate is not its own. Its fortunes rise and fall on tides controlled by men in a distant city who do not know your people's names. On the other path, the town looks much as it does now. The streets are still muddy after a hard rain. Growth is slow and hard-won, and prosperity is measured in small, steady increments. But every success belongs to the town itself. Every decision is made here, within these walls, by these people. It is a future built on the same foundation of self-reliance that has brought you this far. The room gradually falls silent. All eyes turn to you. As the one who founded this place, your voice carries the ultimate weight. The envoy watches you, his smile unwavering, confident in the power of the wealth he offers. The guildmasters lean forward, their own futures hanging on your judgment. The conflict within you settles. You know that true prosperity cannot be measured solely in coin. It is also measured in freedom, in resilience, and in the ability to weather any storm that comes. One path offers a golden cage, the other a difficult and open field. Your choice is not for you, but for the generations who will live here long after you are gone. Part of you craves the immediate glory of accepting the deal, the tangible proof of success it would bring. Yet, the core of your being, forged in the hardships of this town's birth, recoils from the loss of control. You have built a town of survivors, not dependents. You find yourself weighing the glittering promise of specialized wealth against the quiet strength of diverse independence. After a long moment that seems to stretch into an eternity, you stand, the envoy's fine wine still a ghost on your tongue, and prepare to speak the words that will set the course for your town's future. You choose to maintain open trade with all partners. The envoy's smile finally falters as you politely but firmly decline his league's generous offer. He masks his surprise quickly, offering a curt nod before packing his fine glassware and the now useless scroll. He and his delegation are gone by midday, leaving behind only the lingering, exotic scent of their wax seal and the memory of the wine. A deep division settles over the town council. The master weaver and his allies are openly furious, accusing you of condemning the town to poverty out of fear. Others, like the mason and the farmer's elder, offer you quiet, respectful nods, their faces showing relief. You have secured your town's independence, but at the cost of creating a powerful faction of discontented and ambitious men who will remember the wealth you turned away. Walking through the market later, you feel the familiar squelch of mud under your boots and see the plain, homespun cloth of your people. For a moment, you are filled with a sharp sense of doubt, the image of a grand, paved town flashing in your mind. But then you see the variety of the stalls, the baker, the blacksmith, the potter, the brewer, all plying their trades, all contributing to a complex and sturdy whole. You realize this diversity is your town's true strength, a resilience that cannot be bought at any price. The world is far larger and more complicated than you had ever imagined, and your encounter with its emissaries has left an indelible mark on your understanding of power and wealth. You now see that building a town is not just about laying stones and clearing fields, but about navigating the invisible currents of trade and influence that connect you to a much wider world. The choices you make are no longer just for your own people, but are a declaration of your town's place among the great and competing forces of the age. The silence of your study feels different tonight. It is not a peaceful quiet, but a tense one, echoing the divisions left by the recent town council meeting. The arguments against your decision to refuse the Merchants League's offer still ring in your ears. Accusations of timidity, of throwing away a golden future. The master of the Weavers' Guild, whose members stood to gain the most, had looked at you with an expression of cold fury. You run a hand over the smooth, cool wood of your desk, trying to push the lingering bitterness from your mind. The town is independent, its fate its own. That, you tell yourself, is a victory worth any political cost. A faint, sharp smell, like badly burnt bread, drifts through the open window, a common smell from a baker working late. But then it grows stronger. A single shout cuts through the night's stillness. It is distant at first, then closer, taken up by another voice, then another. The sound is raw, filled with a kind of terror you have not heard since the first raid years ago. Fire! The word is a blade in the dark. You are on your feet in an instant, throwing open the door and stepping outside. Against the deep indigo of the night sky, a monstrous orange light pulses, seeming to breathe like a living thing. It is coming from the craftsman's district, near the blacksmith's forge, where the town is packed most tightly.
a direct result of your decision years ago to create a compact, defensible center. Your heart sinks. That choice, made for safety from men, has created the perfect fuel for a different kind of enemy. You run towards the glow, your boots slipping on the uneven cobblestones. The heat finds you first, a dry, aggressive wave that makes you shield your face with your arm. Then the sounds hit, a deep, continuous roar like a waterfall of stone, punctuated by the sharp crack and crash of timbers giving way. High-pitched screams of panic slice through the din. Smoke rushes down the narrow street towards you, a choking, blinding cloud. It stings your eyes, making them stream with tears, and you pull the collar of your tunic over your mouth and nose, but the acrid taste still coats your tongue and claws at the back of your throat. People are everywhere, a frantic shoving tide of humanity, their faces illuminated in jerky flashes by the terrifying light. Some carry buckets, others clutch children, while one man simply stands and weeps, his home already a roaring pyre. The captain of the guard finds you, his face streaked with soot and sweat. "It started in the smithy," he yells over the roar. "A stray spark, we think. The wind is pushing it east, towards the market and the granary." He points with a gauntleted hand, and you see the terrible truth in his gesture. The fire is moving along the dense rows of wooden homes and workshops, a hungry beast chewing its way through the heart of your town. The bucket brigade is a hopeless gesture, like trying to empty the river with a spoon. You watch as a cascade of sparks, bright as angry stars, leaps from one thatched roof to the next. The second roof hesitates for only a heartbeat before it explodes into flame. "We cannot stop it head on," the captain shouts, his voice strained. "The heat is too much. We have one chance, and it is a terrible one." He gestures down a narrow lane, 3 houses down from the current edge of the inferno. "We must make a choice. We can focus all our efforts there," he points to the homes directly threatened, "trying to douse the flames and save who we can. Or," he pauses, and his eyes meet yours, filled with grim understanding, "or we can pull those houses down. Now, use the long hooks and chains, create a fire break, sacrifice that street to save everything beyond it." His words hang in the swirling smoke between you. You look at the houses he means, small, well-kept homes of weavers and coopers, smoke curling from their eaves, but not yet truly burning. Your mind recoils from the command to deliberately destroy the homes of dozens of families, to render them destitute in a single brutal act ordered by you. It feels monstrous. You can already hear their cries, see their faces twisted in disbelief and anguish. Yet the cold, hard logic of survival presses in. Your gaze shifts past those houses to the large stone and timber shape of the granary, its silhouette stark against the hellish glow. Inside is the town's entire store of grain, the food that will see everyone through the winter. If it burns, the fire will have taken everything. Famine will finish what the flames began. The heat on your face is immense, a constant searing pressure demanding a decision. The thought of hesitation, of weakness, is a chilling counterpoint to the heat. To attempt to save the houses and fail would be to condemn the entire town. You remember the merchant's sneer from the council meeting, and a flash of anger cuts through your fear. He and his allies would call you weak,
a leader who faltered when it mattered most. But this is not about them. This is about the faces in the crowd, the children crying, the entire future you have spent a lifetime building. The conflict tears at you. The immediate human cost versus the long-term catastrophic one. You see the faces of the families whose homes you would destroy, and then you see the gaunt, hollowed-out faces of a town in the grip of starvation. The choice is no choice at all. It is a terrible necessity. You turn to the captain, your voice hoarse. Create the firebreak, you command. Pull them down.
For a moment, the captain just stares, his expression unreadable in the flickering light. Then he nods, a single sharp jerk of his head. "Hooks and chains!" he bellows, his voice cutting through the chaos. "To the third row! Pull it down!" A wave of disbelief, then horror, ripples through the nearby crowd as his order is understood. A woman shrieks your name, a curse and a plea combined. But the guards, loyal and disciplined, move to obey. They drag forth the massive iron fire hooks, each one requiring several men to handle. With a sickening crunch, they drive the points into the eaves of the nearest house. Other men with axes begin hacking at the support beams, their rhythmic chops a grim percussion beneath the fire's roar. You stand and watch, feeling the eyes of the town upon you. You are no longer just a founder or a governor. You are a destroyer. The family that lives in the first house is dragged away, screaming and fighting against the guards holding them back. You force yourself to watch as the men on the ropes heave, and with a great groaning tear of wood, the front wall of the house is ripped away. The interior is revealed for a moment. A simple table, a sleeping pallet, the small, ordinary things of a life, before the roof collapses inwards in a cloud of dust and splintered timber. They move to the next house, and the next, a brutal, efficient demolition. You feel 100 accusations in the air, 100 hearts breaking. The work is ugly and desperate. The heat from the approaching fire intensifies, and the men work with frantic energy, their faces slick with sweat, their knuckles raw. They are tearing down their neighbors' lives to create a barren strip of earth and rubble that the fire cannot cross. The roar of the main blaze grows louder, a constant taunting threat. Twice, a rain of embers falls upon the demolition crew, forcing them to beat out small fires on their own tunics. The master of the Weavers' Guild appears at your side, his face a mask of rage. "My best weavers lived on this street," he screams at you. "Their looms, their work, you've ruined them. If we had taken the trade deal, we would have had the money for a proper stone-built guild hall." He says nothing more, but his hatred is a physical thing in the hot, smoky air. Then, a shift. The roar of the fire seems to change pitch as it reaches the newly created gap. It lashes out, a great tongue of orange and yellow, finding no purchase. The flames climb high into the air, seeking fuel, but the empty space holds. They batter against the rubble, but the wooden path is broken. A collective sigh, a gasp of hope, moves through the crowd. The bucket brigades, seeing a chance, redouble their efforts, focusing on dousing the smoldering debris in the firebreak and wetting the roofs of the houses on the far side. The tide has turned. The fire,
denied its forward path, begins to slowly, grudgingly, burn itself out among the ruins it has already created. As dawn approaches, the full scale of the devastation is laid bare under a gray, smoke-filled sky. A great black scar has been torn through the center of your town. Where dozens of homes and workshops once stood, there are only smoldering timbers and blackened skeletal foundations. The air is foul with the smell of wet ash and ruin. But beyond the firebreak, the town still stands. The market is untouched, and the granary, its stone walls smudged with soot but otherwise unharmed, stands as a silent testament to your terrible choice. People move through the streets like ghosts, their faces numb with shock and exhaustion. You see the families whose homes were sacrificed, huddled together under blankets, their eyes empty. They do not look at you, and that is worse than any curse. You walk the line of the firebreak, the ground still warm beneath your boots. The captain joins you, his face aged by a decade in a single night. "You saved the town," he says quietly, his voice raspy from smoke. It does not feel like a victory. You are hailed by some as a hero, a decisive leader who made the hard choice. But to others, you are a villain, the man who gave the order. You have saved the community, but created a new class of homeless and resentful citizens whose futures you must now somehow rebuild. The division you felt in your study last night has been burned into the very landscape of the town. This fire, and the choices it forced, has become a permanent part of your town's story. The act of tearing down and rebuilding has now become part of your own. A few years pass. The raw, black scars of the fire have been covered over with new timber and thatch. Where homes were torn down to create the firebreak, you ordered the construction of a wider street, a stark reminder of the price of survival. The families you displaced were given plots on the edge of town, but their resentment is a quiet current you feel whenever you pass them. They do not meet your eyes. Your decisiveness during the fire saved the granary and the market, earning you a grim respect from the merchants. But you know that for many, you are no longer a founder. You are a destroyer. The town is more orderly, perhaps, but its heart beats with a more cautious rhythm. You have rebuilt the body, but the spirit remains fragile, haunted by the memory of flames and the sounds of splintering wood. This new reality is what makes the news from the river docks so unsettling. It begins not as a panic, but as a whisper carried on the salt-tinged breeze that follows the trading vessels upstream. A sailor from a southern port falls ill with a fever that does not break. Then 2 more. They speak of a sickness in their home port, an unseen enemy that leaves a trail of death. At first, it seems distant, a tragedy for others. But then a dock worker's wife sickens, then her children. The whispers in the town turn sharp with fear. The sickness has jumped from the ships to the shore. It has found a home in the tight-packed houses along the river, in the very places where your compact town design forces people to live shoulder to shoulder. Within a fortnight, the fear has a name, whispered in the market and prayed against in the church: the pestilence. It is a terrifyingly simple affliction. It starts with a burning heat in the body, followed by a great weariness that makes lifting a cup an impossible effort. Then come the dark, painful swellings in the armpits and groin. Few who show these signs see another sunrise. You walk the streets, your jaw tight, and the once proud paved roads you fought to fund now seem like a cruel joke. They gleam impressively, but they cannot hide the filth that collects in the gutters, a foul soup of waste that has nowhere to go. You chose prestige over health, and you feel the weight of that decision in the strained, shallow breathing of your people. The town priest, a man whose faith is as solid and unyielding as the stone of his church, comes to you. His face is pale, but his eyes burn with certainty. He speaks of a divine punishment for the town's greed, for the brawls in the taverns, for the sins hidden behind closed doors. His solution is spiritual. He calls for a town-wide fast, for days of public prayer and penance. He wants to lead processions through the streets, holding aloft the holy relics, to beg for God's mercy and show collective humility. We must tend to the sick, he insists, his voice ringing with conviction. We must show compassion, bring them blessed water and comfort. To abandon them is to abandon God. His words offer a path of communal hope, a way to face the terror together, united in faith. Later that same day, another visitor arrives. He is a physician, a man who came to town with a recent trade caravan and now finds himself trapped. His clothes are foreign, his manner blunt, and his hands are stained with the bitter scent of herbs. He has seen this sickness before, in other cities, and he has no time for prayer. This is not a matter of sin, he says, his voice low and urgent, his gaze missing nothing. It is a contagion. It passes from the sick to the healthy, through touch, through breath, through the very air in a sealed room. His proposed solution is horrifyingly practical. You must quarantine the sick, board up the houses where the plague has taken root, let no one in or out. Establish a pest house, a place of isolation outside the town walls for the dying to be taken. It is brutal, he admits, seeing the look on your face, but it is the only way to cut the branches of the sickness before it kills the tree. You are torn between two worlds. The priest offers solace for the soul, a way for your community to hold on to its humanity in the face of annihilation. His path is one of compassion. The physician offers a cold, brutal surgery for the town itself, a path of survival that requires you to treat your own people like a rot to be cut away. To follow the priest is to risk everyone on the hope of divine intervention. To follow the physician is to become a monster in the eyes of your people, to nail families into their own homes to die alone. You remember the fire, the hard logic of sacrificing a few to save the many. That decision has already marked you as ruthless. To choose compassion now, would it be a correction or a fatal moment of weakness? The weight of your past decisions presses down on you. You chose order over convenience when you laid out these crowded streets. You chose force over negotiation when discontent first stirred. You chose to tear down homes to stop a fire. Each choice was a step down a path of hard-headed survival. To turn from that path now feels like a betrayal of all the sacrifices made before. The thought of those sealed doors, the muffled sounds from within, makes your stomach clench. Yet, the memory of the filth in the gutters, the consequence of your choice to build paved roads instead of a sanitation system, screams the physician's logic in your mind. This environment you have built is a perfect trap, and a compassionate approach will not spring it. With a heavy heart, you realize there is only one choice that aligns with the leader you have become. You summon the captain of the guard. You give the order. The physician's brutal quarantine will be enforced. The captain, a man accustomed to your hard commands, nods grimly and gathers his men. The hammering begins that evening, an awful, rhythmic sound that echoes through the unervingly silent streets. You watch from your window as the first door is boarded shut. A woman's scream from inside is cut short as the final plank is nailed into place. The sound is worse than the roar of the fire. It is the sound of hope being extinguished. Merchants protest, their business is ruined by the halt in all trade. But your guards, loyal and fearful, disperse them. The town, once a bustling hub of your own creation, becomes a collection of cells, a prison you have built around your own people.
The days that follow are a waking nightmare. The sickly sweet scent of death begins to seep from under the sealed doors, a smell you cannot escape that clings to your clothes and hair. You force down bitter herbal medicines the physician prepares, their taste a constant reminder of the poison they are meant to ward off. The streets are empty, save for the guards on patrol and the grim-faced cart drivers who collect the dead left outside the quarantined houses. The silence is the worst part. It is a profound emptiness, broken only by the distant, lonely tolling of the church bell, marking another soul's departure. When you must walk through the square, healthy people shrink away from you. They press themselves against walls, pulling cloaks over their faces, their eyes wide with a fear that is directed as much at you as it is at the disease. The quarantine is a cruel success. The spread of the sickness slows. While entire families are wiped out behind the sealed doors, the disease is contained. It burns itself out in the houses you have turned into tombs. The physician, tireless and grim, oversees the pest house, a place of such misery you can only look at it from a distance. He reports that your quick, decisive action has saved the town from total collapse. You have won. But as you look out over the rooftops, over the silent streets and the shuttered windows, it feels like no victory at all. The priest no longer seeks you out. He spends his days outside the boarded-up homes, praying for the souls trapped within. You have become the embodiment of a chilling logic, a leader who will sacrifice any part of the community for the survival of the whole. The fire taught you that lesson with wood and flame. The plague has taught it to you with breath and blood. You walk to the new, wide street carved by the firebreak, the first great scar you inflicted on your town. Now, invisible scars crisscross every lane and alley, marking the homes where families died alone because you ordered it so. You have preserved the town as a physical place, a collection of buildings and streets on a map. But the community,
The web of trust and fellowship that makes a town a home feels shattered beyond repair. You have held life and death in your hands, not with a sword, but with a hammer and nails. In this silent, fearful place, you have touched the cold, unblinking calculus of survival itself, and seen the terrible price it demands. This part detailed the arrival of a plague, forcing you to choose between the compassionate, faith-based approach of the town priest and the brutal, pragmatic quarantine advised by a physician. With your decision to enforce the quarantine saving the town, but psychologically devastating the community. End state, the plague has been contained through the ruthless quarantine you imposed, but the town is now a silent, fearful place where you are viewed as a tyrant, and the community's spirit is broken by the trauma of isolation and loss. Our journey through the creation of a medieval town comes to a gentle close for the night. Imagine the final echoes of the stonemason's hammer fading from the new walls, and the carpenter's saw falling silent. The scent of sawdust and fresh mortar gives way to the simple aroma of hearth fires being kindled for the evening. The charter has been sealed, the guilds have found their order, and a quiet purpose settles over the new market square. Within those protective walls, a community finds its rhythm of rest, secure in the knowledge that their shared work has brought them peace. Let that same sense of quiet accomplishment settle over you now. The day's labors are done, and the plans for tomorrow can wait. Allow the quiet, ordered streets of this town we've built in our minds to lead you into a deep and restorative slumber. Sleep well.